I'm really excited to be joined by Tim Armoo of Fanbytes. Hello, Tim. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I put on my Instagram story that today I've done 5 different talks, which is kind of crazy. So this
Oh,
is number
wow.
4. And then later on I'm doing one to New York. So it's fun.
Oh, wow. Across the globe.
Yeah, that's cool.
Uh, well, just to kick things off then, I've been following you guys for a while. I think Fanbytes was founded January 2017, the same time that Journey Further was. So it's been amazing to see your guys' growth. Can you just give a bit of brief background to Fanbytes and the kind of work you do for brands to kick us off?
Sure. So Fanbytes, we are the best place for brands to reach a Gen Z audience. So we have Fanbytes, the agency where we run influencer campaigns and content campaigns on YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok for the world's biggest brands like the government, McDonald's, Deliveroo, Samsung, anyone and everyone. And then we have a talent business, Bite-Size Talent, where we exclusively rep the biggest talent in the UK. And then we have the Bytehouse, which is a new thing we came up with, which is like a owned and operated IP, which is a TikTok brand that we've built. So you have those 3 things there. You have the agency, software and services, you have the talent, and then you have this owned and operated IP, but they're like brought together by the idea that they all come together to help brands reach a Gen Z audience.
And I mean, the brands and the organizations you've mentioned there is so impressive. You guys obviously spotted a gap in the market to be able to offer these kind of services. What are the most crucial things which you're helping these brands understand when it comes to reaching Gen Z? What are the key strategies you're having to prove to them that, look, this is the approach you need to take in these modern times to reach this audience?
So say at the beginning where we started, so I started Fanbytes in university when I was doing my computer science degree. And I'd say there we had to talk a lot to brands about why it was important for you to reach this audience. So it wasn't so much that they didn't know, it was more like, okay, we know how this will play out in the next 5 years, but right now, how does it actually, drive results? How does me putting £1 in lead to £2? And so we then, now we have a wealth of case studies to pick from. So that's naturally a very easy conversation to have. I think that the biggest discussion point we have is more about how now do you create the content that gets people to then convert and to act and to buy your product. So it's more about how you create the content and then where you put the content, which tends to be the discussions that we're having with brands. And that is also like an internal thing as well, right? As a company, we are 50 people right now in the company, and so many of the people there are under 24, in terms of from like a campaign and execution perspective, because we constantly need to have that understanding of, okay, this content is doing well, this meme is doing well, this thing's going well, and then being able to inform brands about that has been the main thing.
And yeah, as you say, it's gone so much further beyond just using a different platform into a way of creating content which specifically is going to resonate. You alluded to then the way that you work with all sorts of different influencers. How do you go about, I guess, choosing those influencers and then working with them to produce that type of content to engage the audience?
So, I mean, how we go about it, there's twofold. First one is we've built like tech which can identify who is the most influential person in a particular segment or a particular vertical. But the key thing we've done is like, who is the most influential person in that niche? So we haven't gone for the biggest or even the most popular, right? But then I think that's fine because that's actually relatively easy to do. The thing they then have to understand is, how do I then overlay the what is going on in the culture is part of this. So for example, like the government, we did a big campaign with them when the minimum wage came into place, because they realized that people from BAME backgrounds never knew when there was a increase in the minimum wage. And so what we then said to do was, we went, all right, these guys are using, you know, these type of memes, they're using these type of references. And then you get the influencers to actually like push out that message, rather than just like an influencer going, you know, hey, the new minimum wage is up, like sort it out. You know, that's just a very one-dimensional way of looking at it. So that really, those really are the two considerations that we take when we're working with brands.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about TikTok specifically now. I guess thinking about TikTok as a platform, how have you guys navigated the sort of rapid rise of that platform over the last 2 years? What have been the biggest surprises as well, I guess?
Well, the biggest thing was, so you know how people often talk about, you know, TikTok is a social network and like competitor to Instagram, blah blah. So I think that's complete crap, because what TikTok actually is, it's just a entertainment platform. Like, it's not actually a social network. And the people who know how to navigate the platform well are those who say, well, this is actually an entertainment platform. It doesn't really so much matter about the followers and fans you have. Actually, it's about the content and the creativity, you know. And you can see this by the way, you know, some of the key hires they made and the way they positioned themselves. You know, they hired the COO at Disney to come and become CEO there. The reason why is because as a company, they are very much like an IP company. Like, there are so many new things that are being created on TikTok. There's so many niches and interests, like so niche that you wouldn't even think about. You know, last night I spent it like in the gardening niche. I was just watching people do gardening. I was like, where else would I see this? But I'll tell you where else you can see it: YouTube. So the true competitor of TikTok is YouTube, because they're both not really social networks. They're actually entertainment destinations. Now, the reason why that's important, and in answer to your question, is how did we navigate it? Is because we then started to understand that. We then started to realize, well, the biggest people on YouTube led with content first, and they began to like own stuff. So that's then why we then started to like exclusively manage TikTokers who were very unique in their style of content. That's why we just created the Bytehouse, because it was like, we're going to create a format and then we're going to distribute it through TikTok. Those are the ways that we started to think about the content and think about the way that we approach it, which is why with brands, when we talk to them, we don't talk to them just as like a, you know, here are these people and they're big. We go, well, what's the audience they're going after? And then you then start to understand what is the content that's going on well in that particular audience, and then you feed them into that.
That's super interesting. What you said about TikTok, and yeah, it's when you think about it as an entertainment platform rather than a social media platform, that changes your take on it completely. You mentioned the Bytehouse there. Just for context of people who might not know what a TikTok house is, how do these groups of creators end up getting together, and what are they trying to achieve by forming a collective like that?
So there are two ways you can actually have a TikTok house. One is super easy. One is basically, here are some TikTokers, bring them into a house. That's not a business. That is basically, we're trying to bring a lot of people into one place and try and sell brand deals. That's not particularly interesting. That's basically trying to say that you're building like a mega influencer. That's not particularly interesting. And you can tell that to be the case because the people who do that, like, everyone looks the same, everyone acts the same. There's no real differentiation. Where we started to think about the Bytehouse, so I built this thing and I started it at the beginning of lockdown, because I actually, at the start of the year, I was like, well, brands come to us to reach people and we also have the talent. But what if we could own a brand which ourselves we feel is representative of Gen Z? So that's why in the Bytehouse you have Seb, Monty. One is 18, one is 20, and they're a gay couple. That's very representative of young people in the world who are struggling with issues of like sexual identity. You have Katie and Lily. One is black, one is white. They used to go out, but now they are two best friends. The black girl, Lily, comes from a middle class background. Katie comes from a working class background, which often, when you follow the narratives, is normally like the other way. But again, they are representative of how the world and how Gen Z is. So I think there's two ways that you can go about it. One is just here are some people, put them in a house. But the other is you say, here is a group, and here is going back to the point about TikTok. Like here's a form of like IP which we actually think can scale, which is the reason why we've just done the Bytehouse for the last 10 months, and we've got a book deal. We are about to launch a makeup line, and we've got a deal with a streaming network, and that's just been in 10 months. But the reason why is because people go, these guys are representative of Gen Z. They're not just, bunch of people that we've put into a house.
That's really interesting. So instead of having to, for a brand or an agency, have to try and retrofit an element of diversity to a campaign or a message, it's like you've put it into the foundations of what you're creating.
Yeah, and I think another part of it was we were like, sometimes it's almost like we're trying to convince a brand to do something that we know would obviously work. Why don't we just become the brand? Right. And so we've done some insane stuff where if you were to pitch it to a brand, they'd be like, no. And then we've just done it off a cuff. But I think like because we know it worked and we didn't need to ask for permission.
Yeah, interesting. And then the brand might see that a few months later and think, we should have we should have said yes to that proposal.
This has actually happened. I'm not going to say the name, but this has actually happened.
We've just got a couple of minutes left, Tim. I wanted to ask you, future gazing now, what's the future for TikTok and more broadly, what's the future for reaching and engaging a Gen Z audience?
What is the future for TikTok? The easiest way is look at what's happened with YouTube and just work backwards. That's it. Like big stars are going to be created, but more in the sense of like they'll have their own productions, and again they are less of a social network and more of like a TV platform. Like you can get so niche with TikTok that is scary, and the algorithm will serve you more of what you are interested in. And so that would probably be what I would deem to be the future of it. Look at how YouTube has turned out. TikTok committed 200 million to build their creators. YouTube also did that 2 years ago. They committed 100 million. It's just the same thing.
Yeah.
In terms of for reaching Gen Z, so often I get asked this question about, what is the difference between reaching Gen Z and millennials and older generations? And I actually think there's nothing really different apart from the fact that Gen Z have grown up with the phone as like the remote control to our world. So it's very easy for us to amplify things that we care about and that we don't care about. So I think that gap will widen even more because there's even, Generation Alpha now who they don't even know what a TV is, right? Like, so you suddenly have this thing where I think that gap would widen, and the importance of understanding content, understanding real distribution for this particular audience would get even more and more impactful.
Thank you, Tim. We're out of time, so just to wrap up, I'm looking for your 15-second summary. So I guess if you were speaking to a marketer who had this challenge, which they potentially didn't feel too equipped for, of reaching and engaging a Gen Z audience, how would you give them 15 seconds worth of insight to start tackling that problem?
15-second worth of insight. Go and hire more young people and just tell them to sit in your office or sit on Zoom and just tell you stuff that's happened. That's like the reason why a brand will come to us, the reason why a brand will use us over person X, is actually just because of like the insight that we have. We why would I don't know. Why would Samsung pick us for something when there's several other people in there? Because of like the insight that we have in the audience. So you can basically have that insight by having people who are tapped in with a culture like just in your company.